Colleagues, we've heard a lot of debate about this, and one thing that I don't doubt is all of us in here care about education. And as I look at this conversation for myself, it's about priorities. So I recently saw something that brought back some memories. 2003 was the first year I was on a school board. My son was a kindergartner, and I ran for an election. By the way, I forgot to call the next morning and find out who won. I didn't know how to do that. I simply, very simply, just wanted to help make good choices for my son. Certainly my question or my thinking evolved over the years, and it became about much more than my son, and I realized that. But at that time, I was pretty naive. I just wanted to make good choices for my son. And I was so excited. I thought I had some ideas, and I wanted to roll up my sleeves and help. So I remember my first school board meeting that we started talking about the budget framework. And you sit down at the table, and you talk about expenditures and stuff. And it was the first moment of really disheartening realization that I had. We didn't talk about programs, we didn't talk about electives, but we really had a leaky roof that was super important because it had already leaked for 5 years. And we discussed what to do with the bus fleet because there had been a recall on some of the buses, and this is a large, fairly large geographic area that these buses run in. So we made the choice to take the buses that were in the outlying areas that were on 55-mile-an-hour roads and bring them in town until we received a retrofit kit because they weren't safe in a rollover. And the assumption was, bring them in town, you're not going 55 miles an hour. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. We're talking about which buses are kind of better. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. Well, it wasn't too far into that time, we had some budget crunches. I can honestly tell you, I don't know why we had budget crunches. It wasn't the Great Recession. And looking back, I wasn't smart enough to ask the right questions at the time. I don't know why we had a budget crunch then. But I know that we sat in there and we said, based on contract language, we have to send out some pink slips. Now, the pink slips didn't say, you will be laid off. The pink slips said, we are taking care of contractual language, you might get laid off. But in case we do lay you off, you have to have this notice at this time. So the superintendent handed out those notices. I felt bad about it, felt a little disconnected, didn't quite get the gravity of it until I showed up at an event, I think it was a retirement event shortly thereafter, and had to look those people in the eyes with pink slips. And they said, do you really mean it? Depends. Don't know. And I didn't have a good answer. That was probably the beginning of me changing my philosophy and my attitude, and frankly, growing up and leaving some naivete at the door. We didn't have enough for education. This is prior to the recession. We didn't have enough. We made those tough choices. I remember being about the same time in my son's library one time because I was that mom that wanted to help make school better. I'm in the library and I'm helping, I guess, close up inventory at the end of the year. This is in the mid-2000s. And I'm going through the books, most of which were 40 years old, some of which were 20 years old. And I said, you don't have a book in the library that represents Bill Clinton as the president. Nope, we don't have those. I go to the encyclopedias that at that time, I don't remember how old, they were so old that I would not have used them. Super old. And I said, what about the encyclopedias? She says, I have $350 in my library budget, and I use that to repair the books. I said, well, this is unheard of. So being shameless when it comes to chatting or talking about kids and getting things for kids, I went into the car dealership where we'd recently bought a new car, and I said, you know what? We need encyclopedias, and I think you can help. We had encyclopedias delivered to us right away.
Representative Barreto yields his time. Please continue.
Thank you, Representative. It was that same time I said, why don't we have more books in here? I spend my $350 to repair the ones I do have. So we started to sponsor a book program. Trust me, I walked through the halls of that school, adults ran from me. That's okay, I chased them, and I was faster. And we grew our library. And we got nice, hardbound, Caldecott winter books in our library, opposed to the free scholastic ones that we were putting tape on. That's a priority to me. That's important. And I find it ironic that I was doing that at the same time we were building our son's library at home. He didn't need the books there. That's when I realized when we're on school boards, it's for the other kids, not necessarily the ones that have a strong advocate in the room. And it's those kids I'm standing here and advocating for right now. This doesn't feel like prioritizing. And when I came here, somebody said, why are you going to the legislature? And I said, well, if I can make good decisions for kids at the local level, I want to make good decisions for kids at the state level. I've been frustrated, and I've been disappointed, and I've been disheartened. I've seen government all around me grow. I've seen budgets increase. I've seen more FTE, more full-time employees coming on. I've seen that all around me. And I see the cuts in the schools getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I have a disappointment as my son leaves school this year on a great path. He's excited. I don't feel success. I don't know that I've made it better. I've sure tried. Anybody that knows me, if you mention Aspire around me, I go ballistic. Just yesterday in committee, I had the executive director of OSAC, send everybody on the committee the lists of their schools that have Aspire so you can call and get involved. I put my money where my mouth is. But I can't support a budget when my school districts are telling me it's a cut. And I can't do enough sponsor book programs. And I can't get enough Aspire volunteers. And I get frustrated when I see the government all around me grow, but not the government or not the schools growing. Colleague, I think we can do better because we care and we want to do better. And once again, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do better. And once again, where Sprengers have put their personal checkbook, I'll put it on kids. I'll put it on kids. Sometimes I have to say no to things. That's okay. But I'm disappointed.